Yeah, so I need to do some emergency repair here. I have a 94 Mazda Miata, and the clutch in the morning specifically, it's been hard to get into gear. And I did some inspection. I think it's the clutch master cylinder. So I did go ahead and get one from O'Reilly. I plan to replace that, but I'll try to share a little bit about why I think it's a clutch master cylinder. Alright, so down here we have the clutch master cylinder. Of course, did a visual inspection. In the morning, if I pump it up, it seems to work better after a while, but I really don't want to drive around that much with that. If we look at the level looks good. I mean, it's still at max. I haven't noticed it go down in the last couple of weeks that this problem has been happening. I don't see any leaks around. At least around the line that goes. If I follow it back across the firewall, I don't see any leaks. There is a rubber hose down here. It's kind of hard to see. I'll bring this here. There is a rubber hose down there, right here. It's probably original, but I don't see any problems with it. I suppose it could be bulging and causing some of that issue, but all in all, it looks pretty good. I don't see even any fluid. There's a line right in the middle there. I don't see any fluid coming out there. I did a little bit of an inspection of the slave cylinder. The last time these were replaced, they were replaced in pair, so I might need to replace the slave cylinder as well. It's kind of hard to see here. But I'm going to start with the master cylinder because I know that that's under warranty from O'Reilly. It's been about 6 years, they said, since I last purchased it. The slave cylinder, I felt around. I didn't see any fluid there. Pulled the boot off of the slave cylinder, and it was fine. It was dry, so I really suspect it's probably the clutch master cylinder. So I'm going to swap it out here, and I'll try to share a little bit of that. The first thing I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take all the old fluid off here. Well, it's definitely needs to be replaced. The fluid needs to be replaced. It's pretty black. That's pretty bad. So, I probably could try to just replace the fluid. That's a real long shot. So I'm just going to replace the whole thing. But first things first, I'll get rid of that fluid. So I already took most of the fluid out. I wanted to showcase one of my favorite low-budget tools is the dollar store turkey baster, which is perfect for this type of job. But I also wanted to show, geez, how black this was. I don't know if that comes out there, but I've never seen anything that black. I'm not sure what that is. Exactly why it turns black. I'm wondering if maybe the cup in the master cylinder wears out, and that's some of that, but I imagine some of it is just the fluid going bad. I managed to find the old O'Reilly's brake fluid that I probably used the same time. I probably wouldn't reuse this because it's so old, and since brake fluid is hydroscopic, who knows if it's real quality. So I already bought some new stuff, so I'm just going to use this. I labeled it old, so I wouldn't have to worry about accidentally using it. And I already put some of the old stuff in there now, and I'll probably just have this recycled. I get most of this stuff out. I can't believe how black this is. I've never seen anything this bad. Okay, so I got most of the fluid out, and now I'm ready to break this line here. I think that's where I'm going to start. I stuck a rag under there, and I'm using a line wrench. I don't know if you've ever seen these before, a line fitting tool. Basically like a C open end wrench, but it has a little bit here to help from rounding off. You can probably get away, especially if it's not rusty, with a regular open-ended wrench. But I just happen to have these, so I'm going to start there. It's 10 millimeter. Line is free, no real big issue there. Pretty easy, not a lot of fluid coming out. Next thing I need to do is there's 2 bolts down here. I'm not sure if it's possible to see. Let's see here. There's 2 bolts, one on either side of the master cylinder. 12 millimeter. I'm going to switch to a socket for this part. So a deep socket, because the studs do protrude out quite a bit. And then it's pretty much off, and replacing with the new one. I took it off. Really, it's no drama at all. You want to make sure that if you do spill anything, though, you wipe it up, especially on paint on the fenders, because it will eat your paint. The other thing, there is a gasket between the master cylinder and the firewall. I'm going to make sure maybe not to tear that, or if it goes onto the master cylinder, to take it off. I don't know if the new one comes with it, but just be careful of that. You might want to reuse it. Not much to report on the actual master cylinder. I thought maybe it was weeping out of the interior version, but I don't see any problems. Whoops. There we go. I don't see any issues with that. It looks okay to me, so I'm wondering if it's just internal. It could be some other part of the problem, but I already have it off and I have a replacement, so I'll go ahead and replace it. Take a look at the very sparse directions that came with the master cylinder. And it doesn't really recommend anything as far as bleeding. It does have a website here, clutchtechsupport.com. It recommends vacuum bleeding, but I really don't have that. I do have a bench bleed kit, and please excuse my pathetic excuse for a bench vise. But if you're not familiar with this, this is one way to do it. I looked at the Miata.net forums, and there was some recommendation to try this. I didn't do it last time. I did bleed it in the car. But I thought I'd give this a shot too. I have his old kit here. Basically, you thread in the fitting here, run a hose up to the top, pour some fluid in, and make sure that the hose end is submerged so you can see whether or not any more air bubbles are coming out. And then at the same time, when you got all that set up, go ahead and you can stick in a screwdriver, just make sure it's right in the center there. And you want to compress that several times until you basically get enough fluid through the system and you stop seeing air bubbles come out. I've already done that, so at this point I think we're ready to go ahead and install it. Okay, the clutch master cylinder's back in. All the bolts are torqued down, the lines are torqued down. I don't have any recommendations. On the line, I suppose you could use like the 1/4 inch method, where you basically get it to snug and then try to turn it at least a 1/4 inch more. And probably the same on the bolts as well down there. I also topped it off. Still needs to be bled in the car, and you can do the same bench test that I showed you before with the vise in the car as well. It's just a little bit more cumbersome. I don't have anybody here right now, so probably for the time being I'm just going to open the slave cylinder bleeder and let it bleed out until I can find somebody else for the time being to help me bleed it. To bleed this from the slave cylinder, you have to come around here to the passenger side. And what I like to do is simply just crank the wheel to the left. And I don't know if you can see in there. Should be pretty well lit. But there's the bleeder screw. I tried using a box end wrench, 8 millimeter. For some reason I couldn't get it over the edge there. I could use the open side, but I was afraid of rounding it. So I ended up using a socket, and it doesn't take long. You have to be careful to not run out of fluid. It only took about half a minute, and it drained about half of the reservoir, or from min to max. So I did crack this too to make sure there was no vacuum holding it in. So I'm probably going to just, I already tightened down the bleeder. A lot of air already came out, but I'm going to try the clutch right now, and then just repeat until I get it pretty firm. I bled the slave cylinder about 3 times and made sure the reservoir never ran out. And it ran clear, and I didn't see any bubbles the last time, and the clutch already feels tons better. I already did a couple of tests with it. Not much else to do. I think what I will do is drive it around. I think the real test will be in the morning when it's cold to see if it's actually any better. That's usually when we notice it. And drive around for a few days, and then that'll determine whether or not I need to bleed it a little bit more or replace the slave cylinder. We'll see. But so far I can already tell it's tons better. And hope this is useful. If you like this video, please click like. If you don't like it, well, put a comment, and I'll try to do better next time. Thanks. Bye. Well, it's a couple days later, and as you can see, things didn't go exactly as planned. After the last video I shot, I drove it around, and it seemed to be fine. I went across town, actually. I went back to O'Reilly to warranty the part, the master cylinder. And but as soon as I got up to my garage, it actually stopped working. And I had to do this trick. I don't know if you've done this before, but when you have no clutch, but you still have some power, you can actually turn the engine off, stick it in gear, and start it up, and it'll start going. But you better be ready for it, because basically it'll just go, and you won't be able to get it out of gear. You won't be able to use the clutch, so you'll basically just have to kill it. So that's how I got it actually into the garage. Kind of pushed it a little bit more after that, but luckily I was close enough. I wasn't stranded somewhere. But then I figured, well, maybe it is the slave cylinder. I should probably replace that. So I took a couple of days, but I did end up getting it, and I'll show you a little bit about how that worked. Okay, well, to get the slave cylinder off, it is a little bit more work. I don't think it's necessarily possible to get it from the top there. I don't know if you can see it down there. It's kind of a bright light. If you don't have AC lines going in, you might have enough clearance to get your hands in there. But really what I think you need to do is probably jack up one side. And what I like to do is actually remove the passenger side front wheel just to get in there. But I'll show you down there in a little bit. But the first thing I wanted to show is when I got it off. It's not very hard to do. There's 2 bolts. This line right here. I'll even share a little trick about that. But you can see in there, it's basically all rusty and scored. What I think happened is, at some point in time, the clutch master cylinder was working so well that when I actually engaged it, it seized in there. It certainly looks like that's a possibility, and so it kind of seized halfway between disengaging and engaging. Maybe I hadn't gotten all of the bubbles out, all the air out, but I wanted to replace this boot anyways. It actually looked like when the last people who worked on it replaced it, they just reused the old one, so I kind of wanted to do that anyways. It's about $25 from O'Reilly. It'll be a lifetime part, so now I'll be able to replace it. But you can see definitely it was bad in there. You can get reservicing kits, but it's probably not worth the time. So I'll go ahead and show a little bit here. So here you can see I've jacked up the car, jack stand, got the front wheel off, and I got some light in there, and that's where the new one lives. I probably couldn't see this well in the other one, but it took a little bit of a trick to get the line in there, but once you get it started straight, then it goes pretty fast. And then I actually had my wife help me bleed the brakes by pumping it 4 times, holding it, and then letting go. And that took about a dozen tries to get all the air out, making sure that the reservoir was full up. So not exactly how I wanted to spend additional time, but ideally both of these things should be replaced at the same time, so it was probably just a good measure anyways. But now it actually feels much better than the last time it was replaced, so I hope that's a good sign. So if you like this video, please like it, comment on it. If you don't like it, go ahead and comment on it as well, and hope this helps somebody out there.